Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm so glad we're all here together. I'm Sophie, and this is the very first Surfacing Slowly, a space that, I've been wanting to create for a while now. And yeah, I want to start with an image that kind of, well, came to me as someone who's done a bit of diving myself in the past.
Oh no.
Okay, tech is not on my side today, but we'll see how it goes. I luckily have two people in the room that, well, know what to say as well. So we'll see where we go from here. But I was saying, I had this image of when divers come up from the deep, they cannot just shoot to the surface. They have to come up slowly in stages, pausing to let their bodies adjust to the change in pressure. And yeah, if they rise up too fast, yeah, it can seriously hurt and even be dangerous. And so, yeah, I came to think that's exactly what we don't do as humanitarians. We come home from missions, from the field, from these intense, high pressure environments, and we surface all at once. No stages, no pause, straight back into normal life. And yeah, then we wonder why it hurts or why it affects us in one way or the other. And when we get back, everyone asks the same question, how was it? And somehow we find ourselves sharing the good parts, the stories that go down easily, while the heavier things stay kind of tucked away. Um, but almost nobody asks the question that actually matters. What did you need? And often we don't even know to ask it ourselves. And so, yeah, that's what today is about, what we needed and nobody asked, and we also don't ask ourselves. So, yeah, this is a conversation, not a performance. It's a room where, for once, you don't have to explain yourself because we're all here together and we get each other, right? Um, so, no translating, no proving, no making things sound okay, just honesty and some warmth and hopefully a bit of lightness as well. Okay, we'll see. Yeah, I'm back here. I'll try to do my best. I have no control over technology, so we'll keep on going and flowing. But as I already said before, I'm here with two women I deeply admire, Agnieszka and Jess. And in a moment, I'll let them introduce themselves properly. Um, but so just to give a bit of, well, the flow of the conversation, we will move through a few themes together. And near the end, I'll bring your comments or questions in. So if you have any, drop them in the comments as we go. And yeah, wherever you're watching from. And if you just rather listen, that's also absolutely okay. Um, so yeah, I'll start myself first, as I said, I'm Sophie. I spent years in the field as a logistician and construction manager with MSF, Médecins Sans Frontières, or Doctors Without Borders, across missions in Afghanistan, DRC, Haiti, and Mozambique. And on my last mission, I burned out. And coming home from that, learning how to actually land, how to surface slowly, that is what brought me here to this work and to this conversation. So this one is close to my heart. Um, and well, I invite you, Jess. Why don't you introduce yourself now?
Thanks, Sophie. Hi, everyone. Um, I'm Jess. I am a psychologist. And at the moment, a lot of my work is with around workplace well-being in the humanitarian and aid sector. I've also spent time in the field as a psychologist on missions. And a big part of my practice, or the main focus of my practice, is about looking at things systemically. So bringing in all parts of our system, our cognitions, our emotions, our nervous system, and working with that internal landscape, but within natural spaces. So wilderness-based therapy, nature-based therapies. And what I really enjoy and feel like is a sort of an abandoned part of health and well-being is these transition points. So transitioning into a mission or out of a mission, whether it's a temporary transition or a long-term transition, um, people often drop off the radar at that point in terms of support. So feeling very strongly about being able to support people as they transition throughout different experiences in their careers and in their lives. And yeah, a real pleasure to be here. And I think just an invitation at this point as well, because so much about this space comes down to safety. So keeping ourselves safe, keeping our system safe, keeping each other safe. And there's an element of sort of autonomy and responsibility in that. So as we explore, as we share, just an invitation to just check in with ourselves as we go. Like, are we feeling okay with this? What do I need right now to keep myself safe? And I think that's something that's often lost in those transition points when we surface rapidly. That element of safety is really compromised. So it's just an invitation to check in with ourselves around that, keep ourselves safe, keep others safe. Aggie,
Sorry,
should I pass over to you? That's okay. I just did an intro, and I just passed over to Aggie.
Hi. Thanks so much,
I'm sorry.
Jess.
I don't know if I can't hear anyone anymore, so I'm gonna drop out. But maybe Agnieszka, if you still can hear me, so maybe Agnieszka, can you introduce yourself, and I'll be back soon.
Oh, poor Sophie. She's done so much work to put us together for this conversations. Hopefully she'll get back quite quickly. She already knows me. So to introduce myself to everyone here, thank you so much for having us. And I love what you've just said, Jess, about safety. I feel quite safe in your presence, Sophie's presence. I feel like I'm surfaced at this point. So in that respect, it's a nice place to be. I've been in the field. I started with the humanitarian work in 2011. I was with the ICRC in mostly delegate and protection roles, a lot of transitions in and out of what you've mentioned. And maybe not so much awareness as I have right now of what that means to us, to our bodies, to how we're doing. So I'm really glad to be a part of this space. I am now a practicing life coach for humanitarians transitioning, purpose-driven professionals, people in human rights, international law. I'm leading a community of women in that respect. And there's a lot that happens. And what I hear often is how people are glad to not be alone in these conversations, because I think something that happens is we do go back to where we come from, and it's not necessarily to a community that understands us and or that knows what we have gone through, and it's difficult to convey all of that, and sometimes we might not want to. So thanks to the internet, to these types of initiatives, I'm really glad that we can have a space where we're able to share and learn from one another and from our experiences. I do think that our well-being is really important and often not focused on, right? The focus is always on the people affected, whereas we matter too. So thank you again, Sophie, for bringing us together. And I'm looking forward to the next hour.
Yes, me too. And well, thank you. Sorry, Jess, I missed a part of your introduction. But yeah, thank you both for being here. And so maybe we can start with kind of the ache itself, the thing you needed that nobody asked you about. Well, as I am asking all of us to be honest and give us kind of the real and maybe raw stories. I'm happy to go first with mine, and then I'll invite you both to also do your share. And for me, well, one of mine kind of probably major stories was that after I came back from Mozambique, where I completely burned out, not so long after I came back, I already started offering a friend to do a road trip with me here in Portugal. That's where I'm at. And yeah, in a van. And so then we, that happened
It seems like the breaks are quite short.
Okay.
Yeah, just
So
saying that it's quick.
there I go again. I'll try to keep it concise so that when I drop out, it doesn't affect too much. But so, as I said, I offered a friend to do a road trip in a van, and when I look back on that, that for me already shows now a pattern that I had been doing after quite a few of my missions, being like or running on empty and still having this instinct to give and to organize something, to take someone somewhere, and so on. And I never once asked myself what I actually needed. And yeah, there's this specific moment that I remember of being in on that road trip. We were camping, and were like on this um, campsite with like the most incredible view over a valley. It was truly beautiful, and yeah, I was there like kind of picking on my friend, and for no reason, and just kind of being this annoying person, I have to admit myself, finding like faults and not being a nice person to her, and then feeling awful and guilty for it, because obviously this friend had done nothing wrong at all. And what I see now, what I actually needed in that moment was space. And we were there in that van together on a trip that I had promised or talked myself basically into. And yeah, a van is just the one place where you have no space for yourself at all. So I I trapped myself into that, and just, I guess, in the name of doing something nice, but maybe after all it turned out, maybe, well, and still the friend is still happy that we're still friends, and she's still happy that we did it. But I still look back on that as me not being the best version of myself, but I couldn't see it at that time yet. Although just before the trip started, I started feeling something was off, or that I felt a bit too much. Mm, yeah, because I knew that I would be the one taking the initiative and okay, there I go again. Um, so yeah, I'll finish. I round it up. So yeah, I felt that just before the trip started that something was off, and that I kind of somehow started feeling that maybe I was not ready, but I just could not understand why I was feeling that like that. And I I think I didn't know at that time that I actually still needed rest, and real rest, and that I was probably nowhere from recovered, or close to recovered from that burnout. Um, and that what I actually needed was space to get out of my head, and how I do it is through the ocean, through nature, and that I also needed to do a lot of inner work, and I hadn't even started that yet. But yeah, nobody asked me that, and I also, well, even more, didn't ask it myself. So I just kept giving, because that was, I guess, the only thing that I knew, or how I knew how to kind of come back. Um, so yeah, that's well, a part of my story, and I'm curious. Maybe Agnieszka, you can go first if there's something that you recognize in that, or if you want to share, like the what how for you coming out of the field, if you can share a story from yourself coming back from the field.
Yeah, 100% I recognize that. And I recognize the inability to recognize what I needed. And something that's not been talked about so much. But when we started talking about doing this, one example that came to my mind was after a particularly intense mission. By chance, I chose to go to an ashram in India. By chance, I mean I was close physically. I had been working in Ethiopia, and I was like, oh, there's a flight. I can prolong my um, do something called an extended leave. And what happened was I got to do yoga, and I got to be in a place where there was a lot of stillness. And I probably didn't realize I needed that, but I did kind of start realizing it because people would start asking me, what do I do? And when I would say I'm a humanitarian, there would be this glorification of, oh my God, your job is so exciting. You do such good work. And I honestly started deliberating whether I should tell people that I'm an admin or like some kind of financial person, because I feel like nobody asks follow-up questions. Sorry for the people who aren't admins or financial persons, because it felt really uncomfortable. I had lived through a number of moments throughout the mission where I wasn't necessarily proud of everything, or maybe I had higher expectations of what we should have or could have or done. And so it was actually, yeah, it was interesting to note that how, I guess maybe because they were strangers and I didn't have to, and I had a lot of time in between of how like these emotions would be coming up, and they would be coming up during yoga. They would be coming up during silent moments, during, so I definitely resonate with that. And I think it allowed me to see that because I was in such a contained space for the first time. Because I think before I'd always just go back to my home, my family, and like be immersed in it and just suppress these emotions even more. So that was very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. What about you, Jess? Is there something recognizable for you, and do you have a story from yourself?
I mean, yeah, thanks, Sophie. It's so layered, isn't it? And as you're both talking, I notice and I recognize, there's that physical response, there's an emotional response, and then there's a thought process that comes with it. And as we're processing what we're going through and what we've been through, we're adjusting to a new space and a completely new rhythm and tempo of life as well. And our needs change. And when we're under-resourced, when we're exhausted, we're so much more likely to attach to an experience or attach to something that's been distressing or uncomfortable or unpleasant in some way. So it just becomes this kind of whirlpool of what it is we've experienced, being so exhausted as we're moving away from it, processing it as we move away from it, landing somewhere else, and then not having the resources to be able to process it adequately. So we just get stuck in these ruts, essentially, of processing. And therefore, we're more likely to kind of attach to those experiences that we've had in the field, and also and that that sort of wiriness, Sophie, that you're talking about, that shorter fuse that we have is also layered, right, compared to how how tired we are, or what space we're in. And I do think this word space is also has lots of different meaning to it, right? Inside, like I remember feeling like even within my skin there was no space, everything is compressed, but then also the space around us feels so tight as well. So it's a sort of deep and thoughtful and intentional curation of like, what space do we actually go into when we're coming out of the field, to give us that time to really settle, give our systems a new experience that isn't what we were having in the field. Because that's a huge transition for us on a very non-conscious level. When we're in the field, we're often in survival mode. We need to be in survival mode. We need to be in fight, flight, freeze, whatever it is, to get through the experience. And then when we come out of it, we need to help our systems to then have a more appropriate experience. But we don't always have that, container. Aggie used that word, container, and it's a beautiful word because it's exactly what it is. We don't have that container to say, we're not there anymore. The threat's not there anymore. Like, how do we give our deeper system a new experience that isn't threat-based? So it's very confusing in all of that. Even as I'm speaking, I like that there's a lot of confusion. And that ache, and it shows it's an ache, and that ache, for me and for a lot of clients I work with, is also kind of riddled with a lot of guilt around, where we've been and what we're doing to ourselves and what we might be doing to significant others or families, and and that's layered and that's deep, and that needs to be trodden very, very carefully. So I won't sort of go into it in too much detail at this point, but what I'm putting it on the table as a theme, as something that's a very common experience for people in the sector and coming out of the field is this guilt. And it's a very, it takes a long time. It takes a lot of safety. It takes a lot of support to be able to understand that guilt and build a relationship with that guilt, rather than just push it down, push it down, push it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And that kind of already leads me into the kind of the next.
Let's give it a second.
Okay. I keep on trying. I'm not.
You're good. That's all good.
It's great.
But what I was saying, so thank you, Jessa, for already pointing that out, because that's what actually where I wanted to lead us to next to go a bit deeper on what it actually costs us and what goes on inside of us, right?
And yeah, I want to maybe invite Agnieszka first, if you could share what for you was going inside that you couldn't quite name or understand.
Yeah, I think Jess pointed out quite a lot of it, right? For me, I think what was surprising is I think there's always a guilt what we have towards the communities. And yet there was also this guilt for my own community, which were my friends. It was a mission where I had really profound friendships. And it was difficult to leave. I wasn't ready to leave that. And in that space, I loved how you talked about the space. I was able to start disentangling all of those feelings, right? So, I mean, like I said, it was par hasard, it was like I wasn't intending to process my mission with the space. Afterwards, it taught me quite a lot to do that. But because I had access to reflection, to that stillness, I was able to start realizing what was hurting me and why, what was irritating me and why, how difficult it was to leave something so intense and try to go back to quote unquote normal life, right? I wasn't still in a normal life because I was in an ashram, but yeah, it gave me, yeah, I love that, the container. It allowed me to traverse from one experience to another, allowing myself to get to know myself and all those feelings that came up a lot more. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Thank you for sharing. Well, I hope my connection will keep. Maybe I come a little bit in between, and I absolutely resonate with that. I guess okay, we were in different kind of spaces, but for me, in that van, that was also there was the cost showing up kind of everywhere when you're like depleted and you just stop being the version of yourself you actually want to be. And as I mentioned before, for me that cost was the kind of disconnection from the people that I love and the people that love me. I'm there physically, but not really with them, being distant or snapping at people, or just not able to kind of reach the warmth that well, I think I have normally inside of me, but I could not get that out to the people that were close to me. And these people didn't do anything wrong, and they just wanted to be with me. And for me it also showed up as like judging myself and for not being a better friend or not being a nicer person. And just then I start wondering for myself, what am I doing wrong, or what's wrong with me? Why can I just not be?
That's definitely something that one can resonate with, right? It's like being the outsider when you come home, because you've just lived through something and nobody understands, and you don't necessarily, and you can't even explain it to everyone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you, Agnieszka, for jumping in and kind of rounding up my story. Maybe just, is there any cost that came for you, or something inside of you that you were not able to name? Well, you already kind of started mentioning it just before, but maybe you can go a bit deeper.
I think the cost is also often, especially in sort of support, we often talk about like the emotional cost or the social cost, which are huge parts of it. But what I see with clients, and I also notice in myself, is the physical cost, and that's showing the deep mind-body connection, essentially, and the physiological changes that I experienced where there was nothing organically wrong. Whether it's, I had moments of pain and poor metabolism and digestive issues, and that being, stress related essentially, but so much more exaggerated when coming home. And this isn't, again, just talking about clients I work with, it's such a regular theme. And so having all those that more sort of holistic approach to support when coming home, it is key. And not looking at all these things in silo, right? Oh, I'm having some digestive issues, so let me deal with it medically here. And I'm having some psychological issues, so let me deal with it here. Really supporting people to understand all those relationships within our system and externally. But I think the huge, something that requires and has required for me a lot of repair is that isolation factor. And not physically being isolated from anyone or anything, but feeling extremely alone in my own experience and in my own sort of self, essentially. And that taking a very, very long time for me to feel okay. And part of that being of like how to connect, essentially. So that isolation being fueled by that lack of sense of sort of connection. But I think something that we haven't touched on yet necessarily, and something that I've experienced as well as a big part of the work that I do, is this shift of kind of meaning that happens in it sort of afterwards. And the cost being this, like a deep searching of, okay, so what is the purpose now of my life? What is the meaning behind my life? What do I want it to be? And that requiring a lot of exploration, that requiring a lot of support, and there's a deep cost to it at times, and maybe pre and during, but the growth and the value of it that comes later is huge, if the support is there. So yeah, that was Sophie. I was just talking about the difficulty of that part where we are searching for a new meaning, or we're exploring what that new meaning and purpose could be, but actually the value and the growth, if we lean into it and decide to explore it, can be very significant. But there's a huge cost around it, because I'm not sure, and I certainly experienced, I wasn't really sure that was happening for me. I wasn't sure that there was this existential element of like, okay, I am looking for a new meaning here, and what that wasn't a conscious process, but it was something that was happening.
Wow.
And once it became conscious, it made it easier.
Amazing. Yeah, I really love that, because all these finding new meanings is something, well, if I talk about inner work, that's part of the inner work that I've been doing. So yeah, that definitely resonates a lot with me. And then, yeah, going then maybe a bit deeper into that, because you're flowing already into kind of what could help. So, and yeah, just as well, that's also so much of your work and maybe world as well. What can actually help to, well, either maybe not avoid that cost, but like kind of soften that cost or help you through the process?
Yeah, and I like how you've said that, Sophie, because so often we're conditioned to sort of try and remove an unpleasant experience from our lives. We don't want it to be there, so we try and remove it. But actually, there needs to be a deep integration of it. Otherwise, it sort of just suppresses and builds up and builds up and builds up. And I think there's a kind of pre, during, and post element that would be really helpful to have, is to have those conversations of this is what people experience. I'm not saying this is what you will experience transitioning out, but this is what might happen. And if this does happen, this is what's available. So there's a bit of a preparatory element to it. But also we often we often kind of associate stress to being quite a short-term response. You know, that something happens and then the support is there. It's quite acute, it's quite primary. But often, and what we see when people come out of the field, is some people sort of feel okay and just cope. And then as the months go by, there's an accumulation factor, and something might pop up 6 months later, a year later, 2 years down the line. So understanding, I think, the timeline of a stress response or the timeline of what might happen in transition is really important. So I think what I'm saying in all of that is I think there is a literacy element and sort of education and understanding of how the human condition responds to some of these experiences and some of these places. Sophie's just coming back in, so I'll take a pause there. Yeah. Oh, no, she's gone again. I think there's an element of that, and there's an element that I think I can say with most clients and also with myself and also with friends, there's an element of restoration that's needed. There's an element of restoration, rest, and rejuvenation, repair that's essentially needed. And how that happens is different for people, right? So for some people, it might be at home and going to art classes in the evening. For some people, it might be doing a deep retreat. It might be going to an ashram. It might be going on a surf retreat. And I think it's a delicate dance, because we don't want to completely remove ourselves from a typical life on a retreat. So there's more isolation, there's more distance. The timing of that is really important. I think we really need to support people to gently step back into a space where they do feel safe. How we do that, whether it's online support or face-to-face work. But for me, what has been transformative for me, as well as in my practice, is this sort of nervous system work, this non-conscious physiological work of like really supporting this regulation, this safety, stabilization within the system, so that it can explore some of the experiences that we have had in the field. And that leads to sort of more long-term repair, essentially. And I do say often there's a lot of narrative that comes, and there's a lot of expected narrative come out of the field, like, let's talk about it, let's debrief it. And there's an element of that that's very important, but there's a risk of it being re-traumatization. There's a risk of that being actually sitting in the system deeper, because we're just talking about it. So I think there's this delicate dance of how much talking we do and how much is more experiential, of being outside and moving the body, working with the nervous system, being in nature, regulating. And I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, I love that. Agnieszka, is there anything that you want to share about that, what your experience is with, what could help and what helped you?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And the holistic approach of mind, body, and soul, I think that's really useful. And in the experience I shared, I think that's what through practice by accident showed me, like going to kirtan, using my voice, going to yoga, moving my body, being in community, even though maybe it wasn't an intense, there wasn't a lot of expectation, but still having relations with others. I think one of the things that I reflect upon nowadays is a connection to self. And connection to self is through that, is through nature. It's through whatever you need from, like Jess mentioned, creative outputs. It's through also understanding how we're feeling and why, that what are the thoughts coming up? How are we making sense of what happened? How are we creating the narrative about it? There's now being a coach, that's something that comes up a lot, right? We do have the power to process emotions, first of all, that we don't want to suppress them, but we do want to be conscious of what we choose to think and believe and experience, right? And that does take support. And for me, it was in this transition that I'm having. We were talking about in or on between missions, but we also started opening up the question of a transition to something else that was instrumental for me. It's like, what is the narrative that I'm giving myself? Did I fail? Did I succeed? How, having community of people that you can talk to, having professionals that you can talk to. And also I would add professionals who've experienced it. I've had professional support throughout my career, my life, and sometimes, not often, did I know or find, I don't know if now there's a search of humanitarian psychologists and coaches, but I don't think I was aware or conscious of it before. But it's really nice. What I find with my clients is they're like, oh, I don't need to explain so much to you, you understand. And then you can go a little bit deeper. So yeah. So all of the above and
Yeah, thank you. I love it. Yeah, well, I'll see how long my connection holds. So I'll share my part, but I think I think I already like grabbed bits and pieces so as you know, for me it started like kind of in the water, through surfing in the ocean, because for me that really, being in the ocean, my head definitely gets quiet, and the surfing for me helped. Like there's so much focus on, well, fighting the waves, to say so, that there is no room for spinning or overthinking and the guilt or anything. That for me is like the starting point to like really take me back just into my body and out of my head, basically. And yeah, then, well, or I think surfing or being in the ocean is a part, and then like nature as
she definitely didn't go surfing.
No, that was this morning. I think I don't know what's happening. The connection is off. I don't know. It's maybe overthinking or so, but I don't know. But the surfing, well, happened this morning, so I don't need to do that anymore. But yeah, coming back to that, for me, the starting point was the ocean and then nature, and like really to get me out of my head. And as just I loved how you said, like, spoke about that word space. I think that's for me what I needed in the first place, a space, and define even what that space means. And yeah, then from like kind of a somehow quieter, calmer place or space, doing for myself then like the inner work, the deeper stuff. And then that was about like looking at my patterns and my beliefs and the meanings that I give to things, maybe. And yeah, maybe the reasons why I kept giving from like being empty. So yeah, for me, that the body and like getting out of the head was, and nature helped me with that. And then it was going deeper into myself. And I think, as Jessie also said, there needs to be like a balance, like, because otherwise you just keep on like again thinking and thinking. I think that's why, for me personally, doing a bit of inner work, but then still like doing the embodied experiences and so on. So yeah, and that's, I think, what I want to create with this conversation, that that I want people to know that there is not a need of fixing we are not broken. And yeah, as it's already said so beautifully, we all need space, and then real space, and then partially by getting out of your head, coming back to yourself, and starting to ask the questions that nobody asked you, or and that you also don't ask yourself, right? And then from there, to come back. I think that is an important part of, well, the work doing well.
Doing the work.
And there was something in there about communication as well, and how we communicate. And it reminded me of another element that's been really supportive is animals have always been really healing for me. And it's something I bring into my practice now. So equine assisted therapy, and through working with animals and spending time with animals, we learn a different way of communicating and being received. And I think that's an interesting point of exploration as well, because we're so word heavy, we're so thoughts heavy, and as we transition, just saying, okay, it doesn't have to be. How is it to be in communication, but not based on words, with something else, someone else, another being? And I think the wisdom in that can be quite helpful as well.
Well, thank you, Jess, for that addition. Well, because I want to be mindful of people's time as well. We still have like a bit more than 10 minutes, and so I was wondering if there were any like comments or questions that have come in. I'm trying to see. I cannot see any at the moment. So feel free, if who is watching, if you have any comments, additions, questions, feel free to drop them now. And otherwise, I would maybe like to ask both of you kind of a final question before we close. And yeah, well, I see. Sorry, I see just the comments coming in. I see Randall here. Thank you, Randall. I really appreciate it. But so, yeah, if you go back and would say one thing to yourself right in the middle of the hardest stretch, what would that be? And then maybe Agnieszka, if you want to go first, if you think back. Or is that a too hard
One
question?
thing to say.
Well, I know, that's what I was thinking. Okay, only one.
No, like I don't know if it would be to myself. I don't, like, again, I don't know if now, because I'm in the space, I'm meeting a lot of people, and there seems to be a lot of support that allows you to not feel alone. I could say to myself, you're not alone. And yet I feel like I would still feel alone because I wouldn't know what's out there, right? I don't know if it was the timing or if it was just when you're this micro focused on what you need to do all the time, it's difficult to see the larger perspective. Maybe one thing is that connection with self. It's always cultivating that, and I would agree that cultivation comes from being in nature, being in community, being with animals, being it's really to giving space to the self, to feel, to allow, to go through the emotions, and to have more fun. I think I would have liked to have more fun. I think I spent many years being very serious and very committed and very dedicated, and I don't regret that. And yet there is an aspect of life where we're also creative humans who need love, support, joy, and to live in the elements, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Jess, do you have anything to add to that?
I got it. Like, they're more kind of, I guess, they're little mantras. And one would be, an invitation just to pause, to stop, and where can you feel the space? Just, just an invitation, like within, whether it's like in your tummy or your toes or feeling the breeze on the skin, just like, where can you feel that space? And just, if someone could have just planted that, like, every hour, every couple of hours, just as a little practice.
Yeah.
And then I think something more directive would probably be along the lines of, like, you can feel different things and it's okay. Because I think we often try and feel like one thing, like we must be joyful or we're sad. And I really believe in polarities and spectrums and, building relationships with all these different parts. And I think that would be really helpful, just to say you can feel these things and it's okay. And that would have been helpful.
Wow, thank you so much. Amazing. So yeah, we covered a lot already in this.
What would you tell yourself, Sophie? You can't get out of that one. One thing to tell yourself.
Well, you took the words out of my mouth, because I wanted to have more fun as well. Well, I believe that I did have. Actually, I did. Looking back, I do believe that I had actually a lot of fun as well. I think I came back often frustrated, and only afterwards I saw with how much richness actually I came back.
Maybe it freezes every time she tells the truth.
Well,
I said that it freezes every time you tell a truth, like the core truth, the richness that you have.
Somehow, whatever is in the space, it doesn't want me to tell the truth. But,
or wants us to think about it. Pause and think about it.
Okay, I cannot pause too long, because then it takes me out of the space. But yeah, well, I don't know where. I think I got cut off when I was saying that I came back often like frustrated and forgetting how what actually the missions have brought me, and also the richness and the joy that I've had. And I think that, like, realizing that earlier would already, and then it comes back again to like meaning and I guess the beliefs, or so that when I come back, that I don't need to see all the darkness that I am feeling and building up, because I'm just telling myself all these frustrating things, but that I also have this little voice inside of my head that says, oh, but look at these moments, can you remember these ones as well? And it doesn't necessarily balance out, but it brings you in a different state, I guess, than like keep on whining on these darker thoughts or so. So I think that is what I would tell myself if I would go back. So yeah. Well, I just want to kind of round it up slowly, because there we covered quite a lot, I found, and I think it's important to talk about things we needed that nobody asked, but we also don't ask ourselves, and what it cost us, and then to carry that alone. And I love that you brought that up again, Agnieszka, that this kind of community feeling, how important that is, and yeah, what then helps us to start coming back, and that things don't, well, have to go overnight or so, but that there's a process of all these different things that we can do. And yeah, I think like the common thread is, and it got mentioned a few times, is that we're not meant to do this alone, but also just this realization of we are not alone in so we are not alone. I can keep on jumping out, but still you are with two in the room. So um, I yeah, so I wanted to, well, thank everyone who is watching, and if any of this kind of landed or you recognized yourself in what was shared, and so yeah, I think that was also a main message that came out here, that we're not alone, and everyone, like, maybe in different stories, experiences similar things somehow. We're also not broken. You don't need fixing. And yeah, that it's about, like, you've just been surfacing too fast with no space to really land, and having asked that question, what you actually need in the first place to yourself, right? And yeah, it's what the work does to all of us, but it's also, if we let it, and there's a work that we have to do for ourselves to not let the humanitarian work then take us that road or so. So, well, this is, in the first place, I think also an invitation to start asking yourself the question, what do I actually need? And know that you're not the only one asking that. So yeah, this is the very first one of these conversations. I am working towards having more of these because I thought it was fun. So yeah, it's about having these honest conversations and making sure that, well, people do not feel alone, and know that other people are feeling similar or experience similar experiences. And yeah, that it's about having or bringing this out so that we see the community that is actually there around us, right? So I definitely want to thank Agnieszka and Jess for being here, and for your honesty, your warmth, and everything you brought today, and the
Well, it's also our turn to, she's not going to hear us, but maybe in the recording she'll say that I'm very happy to have been here. I'm saying you're going to see this in the recording, Sophie, but thank you for bringing us here, and thank you for bringing up these really important questions. And the only thing I would add is, for anyone watching and does feel alone, I think the advice you have given and the questions you have raised are imperative, and also there is support. So don't be shy. There's lots of brilliant people who want to help others surface, right? And stay afloat. But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for, well, both of you for being here, for taking your time and sharing everything what you shared, all the wisdom that came out in this 1 hour. Well, I had fun and it was amazing, although I dropped out and so on. But well, that's how it goes somehow sometimes, I guess. And yeah, to everyone who joined and was here, thank you for being here, for listening, and for trusting us with your time. And give yourself the space to surface slowly. And I hope to see you in the next one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.